anything together. So our hearts may be shattered right now, but with this prayer and with this blessing, we're pulling it back together, and we're doing it together. We're stronger, talking about it, putting these healing words out there. We send that healing vibration to everyone who's listening on the line, to the committee members, the leadership of Navajo Nation, and for our children and loved ones who feel that no one cares about them. We love them. We honor them. We're here for them. And for our military families that are watching the escalation of combat in Afghanistan, that you just continue to heal them and protect our military families so that they come home, and that you restore their minds when they come back to their four sacred mountains, and put all of that hurt into the ground and blow it out to the north, that you just continue to restore us from the bottom of our feet to the top of our head, that you create this healing for our people, and that together we can do it with your prayers, with your guidance, with your teachings. I'm just so humbled today to be offering this prayer to you on behalf of our beautiful people, and to know that all of us are holding on to our hearts, thankful for the breath of life, thankful for everything that you've provided to us, and we just want that restoration. So, thank you, Chair. It's been good to provide that prayer today, if you have.
I think an Pasadena ni Yahla. The Kodob not Hikoni Glonigi, Shnanta, Budget Finance Committee, Deep Binibia, the Dine hat Avigay, the Canada Hoya, or Hobla Chekanashma, General Pasadena Zunigi Kodo. The Nachina Soya agenda, which is not the Kata, but say, visiting guests and officials recognizes all Yishnanta. Budget Finance Committee, we have our legislative advisors, Ms. Peggy Nakai and Ramona Nelson. And today, one of our advisors, Ms. Shami Begay, will be enjoying her retirement luncheon. And if we can, the Budget and Finance Committee, if we could allow our two staff members to be also present at that luncheon at Fire Rock this afternoon. If we could get to our meeting agenda and allow them to travel, maybe we could, let's make it, if we can make it work for them, I would appreciate it. I'm sure they would appreciate it too. With that, without further talking, let me move forward to Office of Legislative Counsel. Ms. Lorlene Tapahi, are you on the line? Navajo Nation Department of Justice, are you on the line?
Good morning, this is Rudy Anaya with the Department of Justice.
Good morning, Mr. Anaya. Do we have Navajo Nation Office of Management and Budget on the line? Office of Management and Budget? Navajo Nation Office of the Controller? Office of the Controller.
Hi, this is Janine, representing Office of the Controller, and Elizabeth is attending another meeting.
Okay,
and I will be assisting.
Thank you for making that announcement. For the record, Ms. Janine Jones is on the line. Although, let's move forward to our executive branch. Office of the President, Vice President. Is there a representative from the Office of the President, Vice President? Navajo Nation Judicial Branch. Office of Madam
Good morning. Good morning,
Good morning.
Chair. This is Karen Francis. Good morning, Budget and Finance Committee.
Good morning. Thank you for being on the line. The Office of the Speaker, 24th Navajo Nation Council.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. This is Donovan.
Good morning, Donovan. Okay, moving forward to our 24th Navajo Nation Council. Based on are there any council delegates on the line this morning?
Mr. Chair, this is Delegate Herman Daniels Jr. I'm on the line. Senat Seniki Kodo Oni Jete de Kodo Herman Daniels Jr. They all jet to shot to Tabi Kendonatus on Banasness. I don't know any bit any. To the sun that is yes, can't thought that's another. We had leaned us to that he should have to say that I don't know. I think Kodo Dost, a week Kodo Iba him, so Kodo Shama for the house. Yeah, had thinking Kodo the delegate Emma Crowdy Kodo. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Delegate Herman Daniels Jr. Today, being on the line here at Kahla. Are there any other delegates on the line? I guess with that, let's move forward on our agenda.
This is Delegate Yeller. I'm on the line for the record.
Yeah, this is Delegate Jimmy Yeller here. How do you hold it?
For
the record, Delegate Jimmy Yeller here is on the line. So we do have 5 members present right now. Peggy, if you would read the proposed agenda into the record for us, please.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Budget and Finance Committee. I hope you can hear me. Okay, proposed agenda of the Budget and Finance Committee of the Navajo Nation Council, September 21, 2021. Regular meeting via teleconference. Presiding is Jamie Hinio, Chairperson, Raymond Smith Jr., Vice Chairperson. Placed via Zoom telecommunications, Window Rock, Navajo Nation. 1, call the meeting to order, the roll call, the invocation. 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. 3, review and adopt the agenda. 4, review and adopt the journal. None. 5, receive reports. A, gaming distribution funds for chapter utilities presented by Pearl Yellowman, Director, Division of Community Development, and others, with Honorable Rick Nez, Chairman, Resources and Development Committee. B, FY22 budget update presented by Dominic Bial, Director, Office of Management and Budget. C, report on CARES Act expenditure allocated to the Office of the Controller presented by Janine Jones, Internal Auditor, Office of the Controller. 6, old business, none. 7, new business. A, legislation number 0161-21, an action relating to Resources and Development and Budget and Finance Committee, accepting the Auditor General's follow-up review of the Oljedo chapters, corrective action plan implementation, and imposing sanctions upon the Oljedo chapter for failure to implement the corrective action plan, sponsored by Herman M. Daniels Jr., Council Delegate. 8, close of the session, written announcements, adjournment. The next regular meeting is October 5th, 2021. Chair Hinio.
Thank you for reading the proposed agenda. Is there a motion to the Budget and Finance Committee?
Motion, Delegate Crotty.
Motion by Delegate Amber Knessbach-Crotty. Is there a second?
Yeller here. Second to
Delegate Jimmy Yeller here. So we do have a motion and a second on the proposed agenda as read. Floor is open for any type of amendments, discussion, debate.
Chair Handy, this is Vice Chair Smith. Good morning.
Vice Chair Smith, good morning. You have the floor.
Oh, here, Lashin and Dad. Since we have Honorable Herman Daniels on board the legislation to Decadado Picado A reports it only. We don't need a quorum after report, so later that body state and yay state of the NATO or the Catadino in honor of our co-worker, though the Kushina Kaibananishila. Ehota Bedishna Shinanda Hela.
Kushina Hela. Amendment number 1, motion by Vice Chair Smith, to move towards legislation 7A first on the agenda, and then after that to hear the reports. So is there a second to that motion?
Yellow hair?
Motion by second by Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. We do have a motion and second for amendment number 1. Floor is open for any type of questions, comments on amendment number 1.
Chair Henyo, this is Delegate Cardi.
Delegate Member Cardi, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Since these corrective action plans are purely administrative matters, would the motioning party consider just adding this as a consent agenda so it can move forward? Thank you, Chair.
Delegate Member Cardi, we only have one legislation on the agenda. That's the only one we have.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Henyo. So with the consent agenda, we would just move to vote. So that would be my request. Since it's an administrative matter, it's being taken care of by the general auditor and the chapter. That's just my recommendation, Chair, so that we could move it along quickly. Thank you.
I hear you, Shananda. That,
Chair.
Vice Chair Smith?
And I have 2 granddaughters with her, and they always call me Jayhawk.
Can you mute your phone, somebody?
Whoever's granddaughter's a Jayhawk.
Vice Chair Smith, I request to modify to a consent agenda for legislation for Old Jato chapter. Vice Chair Smith?
Okay, Lashnanda, Lodge doesn't die eat, Chair Henyo, though, Shemayaja, did it quite, Benye, Sana with a desert, so as I see past Tinko. It does need Sando, Ida, Nedo, Hashida, State or Lake Benache, Con hit desert sauce. Oh, Nas Nadish can show that Bendy Jill, no, we are sure that Ko Shay had. The cases need of that in Sado, Ida, Nedo, Halida, Ska nature, Bita, be those in Ho, be Giat Hito, Benache, with us Zido, Shananda, Kela.
Okay, Kela. Thank you for that, Vice Chair Smith. Shananda, Budget and Finance Committee, any further questions, comments on amendment number 1? I'll call for the question. If there are no further questions on amendment number 1. Ramona, if you would lead us in a roll call vote for amendment number 1.
Sure, Chairman, for amendment number 1. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I vote green too. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Amber Kenneth-Bott Cardi, how do you vote?
Delegate Kenneth-Bott Cardi votes green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Amber Kenneth-Bott Cardi votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green. Yeah.
Thank you. Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote? Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote? Chairman, we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing, chairman not voting, and 1 member not voting. Chairman?
Kela, thank you. Amendment number 1 receives a due pass. 4 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. We're back on the main motion. Any questions, comments on the main motion? I'll call for the question on the main motion with 1 amendment. With that amendment, the GAIA is to move legislation, new business item first, and then reports after that. So with that, Ramon, if you would lead us on a roll call vote for the main motion.
Sure, Chairman. Roll call vote on the main motion of adopting the agenda Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I'll vote green too. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Amber Kenneth Carty, how do you vote?
Sada, this is Delegate Amber Kenneth Carty. I vote green. Thank you.
Thank you, Shadezer. Honorable Amber Kenneth Carty votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green.
Thank you. Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote? Honorable Elmer P. Begay. Chairman, we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing, chairman not voting, and 1 member not voting. Chairman?
Thank you for that roll call vote. We do have 4 members voting in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. We do have an agenda before us for today. With that, let's move forward on the adopted agenda. Next item on our agenda is receiving reports. There's none. And then next item on our agenda is old business. There is none. So we'll go to new business, item A, legislation 16. I believe it is 16. 161-21 -21 or 20. I can't see it, but Delegate Herman Daniels Jr. is on the call here. Do we have the Office of the Auditor General on the call?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Budget and Finance Committee. This is Helen Brown with the Auditor General's office. I also have my staff on the line, Janelle Benali, as well as Karen Briscoe. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for being on the call. Also, Delegate Herman Daniels Jr., JTO chapter officials. Do we have the chapter officials and staff on the call this morning?
Good morning. Good morning. This is Willis Brigade, chapter president of Oljeto.
Good morning, Shananta. The chapter vice president, Shao.
This is Jean Holliday. I'm the chapter vice president.
Good morning, Shananta.
Good morning.
I'm on the line. This is Marietta Badoni.
Good morning, Shananta. Do we have the chapter manager or community service coordinator on the line?
Good morning, Calvin Sosi. I'm the acting CSC. I'm on the call.
Mr. Sosi. So with that, we do have everybody for this legislation that's on the call this morning. Peggy, if you would read the legislation into the record for us, please.
Chair, you also need to check to see if the AMS is on the call too.
Okay. Mr. Sosi, as the account maintenance specialist on the call also.
I believe she is.
Hello, this is Peggy, AMS. I'm on the call.
Thank you. Thank you for being on this call. Peggy, if you would read the legislation to the record.
Thank you, Chair Hinio and members of the Budget and Finance Committee. Legislation number 0161-21 is a proposed standing committee resolution assigned to Resources and Development Committee, thence Budget and Finance Committee. Budget and Finance Committee has final authority. 24th Navigation Council, 3rd year 2021, introduced by Herman M. Daniels Jr., prime sponsor, tracking number 0161-21. An action relating to Resources and Development and Budget and Finance Committees accepting the Auditor General's follow-up review of the Oljeto chapters, corrective action plan implementation, and imposing sanctions upon the Oljeto chapter for failure to implement the corrective action plan. This legislation has been electronically read into the record. Exhibit 1 that's referenced in the legislation is the Budget and Finance Committee Resolution BFD 56-19, which should include the special review of the Oljedo chapter, which is Exhibit A, the report number 19-23. And Chair and members of the committee, this item is not posted with the legislation, but because our email system is down, the legislation section hasn't added that report, but that's the preliminary report that was supposed to have been attached to the legislation. And then the second one is Exhibit 2, which is the report number 21-14, the follow-up review of the Oljedo chapter corrective action plan implementation. We also have the Legislative Council's memo, the Internet Public Review, the first report, there were no comments received, and the Resources and Development Committee report has one amendment. On page 3, line 8, add paragraphs G, H, I, J, and K as follows. This is new language. G, the Oljedo chapter officials that were chapter officials during the time period contained in, quote, a special review of Oljedo chapter report number 19-23, end quote, are not the same chapter officials that are currently Oljedo chapter officials. H, in the interest of fairness, the current Oljedo chapter officials should not be sanctioned for the actions described in, quote, a special review of Oljedo chapter report number 19-23, end quote, because the current Oljedo chapter officials were not chapter officials at the time. I, there is currently no CSC employed at the Oljedo chapter. Currently, there is only an AMS at the Oljedo chapter. J, in the interest of fairness, the Oljedo chapter should not be sanctioned for actions described in a special review of Oljedo chapter report number 19-23 because there are not enough employees to assist the Oljedo chapter to accomplish the identified issues in the special review of Oljedo chapter report number 19-23. K, the purpose of the chapter audits is to teach the chapters how to manage the chapter functions. Sanctioning the Oljedo chapter and its chapter officials will not assist in this purpose. The Division of Community Development should continue to assist the Oljedo chapter to resolve the issues in the audit report number 19-23. 2, page 3, lines 9-27, amend as follows. Section 3, and then overstrike acceptance of Auditor General's report and imposition of sanctions, underscore, chapter allowed additional time to complete the findings. New language A, the Navajo Nation hereby allows the Oljedo chapter an additional 6 months to address the findings in the Auditor General's report. A follow-up review of the Oljedo chapter corrective action plan implementation report number 21-14 dated June 2021 attached as Exhibit 2. Overstricken language. A, the Navajo Nation hereby accepts the Auditor General's report, a follow-up review of the Oljedo chapter corrective action plan implementation report number 21-14 dated June 2021 attached as Exhibit 2. B, as authorized by 12 NNC section. As authorized by 12 NNC section 9B, the controller shall immediately withhold 10% of all monies payable to the Oljedo chapter from any governmental fund of the Navajo Nation as defined at 12 NNC section 810S as provided for in 12 NNC section 9B. This withholding of funds shall continue unless and until the Oljedo chapter demonstrates to the Auditor General that all corrective measures included in the approved corrective action plan for the Oljedo chapter have been satisfactorily implemented. C, in addition, as authorized by 12 NNC section 9C, the controller shall immediately withhold 20% of all stipend payments for Oljedo chapter officials. D, Oljedo chapter officials may appeal this withhold of their stipend payments in accordance with the procedures detailed in 12 NNC Section D9D. E, when the Oljeto chapter demonstrates proof of adequate compliance with the provisions of the corrective action plan, the Auditor General shall immediately report such compliance to the controller, who shall then release all withheld funds back to the chapter and to chapter officials in accordance with 12 NNC Section 9B through C. 3, page 3, line 28, insert a new section 4 and section 5 as follows and renumber the remaining sections. So this is all underscored language. Section 4, directives. A, the Division of Community Development is hereby directed to continue to work with the Oljeto chapter to remedy the issues identified in a special review of Oljeto chapter report number 19-23. B, the Division of Community Development and the Oljeto chapter officials are hereby directed to report to the Resources and Development Committee and the Budget and Finance Committee on Oljeto chapter's completion and correction of the issues in the audit report. This report is to occur no later than 3 months after this resolution is certified. 4, page 4, line 3, insert section 5 as follows. New language, section 5, revisit a special review of Oljeto chapter report number 19-23. A special review of Oljeto chapter report number 19-23 will be revisited within 6 months after this resolution is certified. And so that is the reading of the Amendment 1 from the Resources and Development Committee. The vote tally sheet is also attached to the legislation. Chair Hinio.
For that reading, send out Budget and Finance Committee. Is there a motion?
Motion, Delegate Crotty.
Motion by Delegate Crotty. Is there a second?
Yellow here.
Second by Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. Would you have a motion and second on the floor before I defer to the sponsor, Delegate Herman Daniels Jr.? Defer the floor over to the Auditor General, Office of the Auditor General, Ms. Helen Brown, and her staff to give the Budget and Finance Committee a report of their findings and their recommendations. Ms. Helen Brown, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Although members of the Budget and Finance Committee, good morning to everyone. I am on the call with my colleagues here. Janelle Benally is the auditor that performed a follow-up review, and she was supervised by Ms. Karen Briscoe. I know the legislation is referring to report number 19-23. I just want to clarify for the committee that is our original audit that we did of Oljeto chapter, and that was issued back in 2019. There was a corrective action plan that was approved for this chapter, and report number 21-14 is what we will be speaking to today, because that is the follow-up on the corrective action plan implementation progress by the Oljeto chapter. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to Ms. Benally and Ms. Briscoe to present the follow-up review results. Thank you.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Karen Briscoe with the Office of the Auditor General. I have Janelle Benally here with me, the lead auditor for this project. And we'll be presenting the follow-up review of the Oljeto chapter corrective action plan. Back in 19, we completed a special review of the chapter, and the chapter developed a corrective action plan. The report and corrective action plan were approved by the Budget and Finance Committee back in December 2019. The objective of this follow-up was to determine whether the Oljeto chapter implemented their corrective action plan. And we looked at a 6-month period of October 2020 to March 2021. There were only 2 audit issues, audit findings in this report. And for those 2 audit findings, the chapter developed 16 corrective measures. Of those 16, 2 were implemented and 14 were not implemented. So since
Point
they
of
did
order.
not fully implement,
This is Vice Chair Smith, point of order. Vice Chair Smith, what's your point of order? So, Shinandad, Lodge Dustin Daigi, Chair Henio, Diet, legislation Kwan Hitashi Sosagi, Led Hinandad, Herman Daniels, Shinada, Hato Tito, Ado Bakado, agents and ID kid. Without inch kid, Ashmoda, Shai Hainas, and Hinandad, Ajita, Yahaliado, Days Ito, Ebar Aso. Aron the kid issue that 90 kid holo be the sala. Okay, without a point of order session and dash water.
Your point of order is noted, but as of all these sections, we do hear from the
Virginia, we can't hear you. You're breaking up.
Yeah, let me find a good spot here. What about, can you hear me?
Not just barely. We can hear you.
Okay, let me. I'm on my way to when they're out here. Let me see. What about
It's not that good. Chair Henio, are you still there? Vice Chair, you may have to be the lead on this call. If we lost Chair Henio's call just now, it dropped.
Hagushi Shade, point of order. We had this Shabi got the chair board linked a Heshi, the dog Kiki, pro temper of the even that a Nasi Kato, and a call other did should shade the Viga, should shade Jimmy Yellow Hair, pro temply, although did when ye a point of order slaggy in the kid be so la shade.
Yeah, been a good morning. I'll go ahead and take over while your question is over. Thank you very much. Supiga, take the floor now. We're in order.
Hagushina, thank you. I see ya.
Oh.
Hagushi, point of order, Ishvaya, quite down here, Lodge the Staggy Chair, and you have lost connection. Call, he had sponsor a Hasahato, called it D that Agi, and his children, after the agents advocated, or the Lanan Sindag, Yanet, chair, no, without a happening. He went ahead and made was going to make a determination on the point of order call. Yanet, we lost his signal called the Che. That's no needle like Che had those point of order for the Che to Ahazan the Celine. The here last Che.
Okay, I think we're in order. Your mistake is correction in Labahanti is correct. So let's take over right now and go ahead and questions on Mr. Daniel, Honorable Herman Daniel. Nari Kiraloka.
Mr. Che did because Sigi had then a Herman Daniels Telecommun sa na hoid ein his judo asto hanza na nish iliado na jebe ado se sa don lehin Sunday schneide kid hado bi solarika o in ado na habe ado se do ado bekedo shin naide kid holodo without point of order is shnanda pro temp chair.
Here should to what are in ke what on the dish not the kitty to Herman to respond that one. Herman Daniel just not name so I'd like to give a floor to Mr. Herman Daniel. Could to not that's kitty Vice Chair Smith. Herman, you have the floor, Herman.
Mr. Pro Temp Chair, kudo Delegate Yella here, kudo I see kudo by him kudo today. So, do I present my legislation to the BNF now, Pro Temp Chair?
Do you have the floor, Honorable Daniel?
Okay. Thank you very much, kudo. Ado kudo good morning, Kidashnido, like kudo Shanat Shaniki kudo Budget and Finance Committee kudo. Starting from chair, vice chair, and also committee members. Kudo Ado Shamado Trasata, Delegate Amber can cross. Yeah. Kudo the main sequel, I think, thank you for the wonderful prayer, kudo to start a day off kudo with a prayer kudo. Every today and every day kudo. But kudo today before you kudo with a legislation legislation 0161-21 kudo on behalf of Office of Auditor General kudo could not kudo. So kudo this legislation kudo. The purpose of this legislation is to accept the Auditor General's follow-up review of the OJTO implementation of its corrective action plan and to impose sanction upon the OJTO chapter for failure to implement its CAP, corrective action plan. So, chapters that is on not just Minnesota and Halden, and I'll toss into Sosoko. I don't know, Saddam in a grade, Ecuador, chapter officials, chapter staff, Ecuador, Edo Argent later. That is so other hard seat on this Ecuador, but Ecuador on behalf of the Auditor General, Ecuador, as that in Michigan, very Adanash Igla. Ecuador the auditor Dalia in Mexico findings the case of getting a town Ecuador in a didinal for the dollars of so today I have this legislation for you Ecuador Budget and Finance Committee no Seniki. Ado Ecuador moving forward Ecuador what I would like to hear today from Office of Auditor General Auditor Ecuador Ojeto chapter officials or Jado chapter staff, so what I would like to hear is the resolution how to correct these findings. Initial so these so I say in so I don't know later saying I need the life administration saying what I could now the secretary I don't that they can add Hako. I don't deal metal lesike or yes and I could that but moving forward Ecuador they could they get Ecuador not only just out Hashi or you in hand out of Java is a slash the easy. I think that's one other initial let's go. So that it is I see how to fix these findings. I know that RDC they made a recommendation. They made some amendment to this legislation. So Ecuador is the Mexico. I see when this legislation went before RDC, they made an amendment not to sanction Ojeto chapter. I don't know so even that should go I'm going to give some time to my agents, Office of Auditor General, Other Staff, and Linke Miss Brown, Other Dakodo, Bandal, Nashiki. So even now, the Shutai Lashing and Isla has metal, and the audit that is lashing and Isla has metal. So at this time, I'm going to give the floor to Miss Brown and her staff as well, Pro Temp Chair. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Herman M. Daniels. Yeah, that's awesome. I'd like to move out to your request to Helen Brown and Arwate Shutsui. Accident, yeah, on his own, Vice Chairman Shutsui.
So I'll be the agent, but so
by our husband, now I'll give the floor to the agent, not to Helen Brown. Herman Daniels, so take the floor, Helen Brown. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, our Pro Temp Chair. Can you hear me?
Pretty good. I can hear you well.
Okay. I want to go ahead and turn it over to Janelle Benali. She was the lead auditor. She's going to go ahead and do a summary overview of the follow-up review results. And then from there, we can answer any questions that the committee may have with regards to the report, as well as the recommendations that were made by the Resources and Development Committee. I do have a comment on that as well. But let me go ahead and turn it over to Janelle to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen Brown. Go ahead, Janelle. Go ahead.
Hello, this is Janelle. Good morning to all the committee members. I'm going to go ahead and read the report now. The first finding was the travel request and expense reimbursements were not properly approved. Controls over the travel activities remain weak. For the 6-month review period ending on March 31st of this year, there were no travel expenditures. And so to verify the implementation of the corrective measures for this finding, we expanded our audit to identify travel expenditures beginning in April 2020. Accordingly, 9 travel expenses totaling $1,168 were identified. There were no travel expenditures for the AMS and the CSE. Of the 9 expenditures, 6 were travel reimbursements paid to volunteers during the COVID pandemic for delivering supplies to community members. To justify these reimbursements to the volunteers, the chapter applied the 5 management system travel policies and procedures for proper support, documentation, and approval. However, the following discrepancies were noted. One is that 1 travel voucher was missing. Second one is 8 travel authorizations were prepared and approved by the CSC instead of the AMS. 8 travel authorizations were incomplete and not approved prior to the travel. 1 traveler was approved for travel reimbursements beyond the authorized travel dates. 1 travel reimbursement was missing a trip report, and 5 travel reimbursements had expense reports, trip reports, and mileage reports that were prepared by the CSC on behalf of the traveler. The CSC also signed some of the documents for the traveler and approved the documents as the supervisor. Although the corrective measures agreed to by the chapter required segregation of duties, the current travel process showed the CSC had continued to perform all key procedures, including the preparation and approval of travel documentations on behalf of the travelers. This practice does not facilitate proper accountability of chapter funds. Lastly, since there were no travel activities specifically for the CSC and no travel advance issued during the scope, 4 corrective actions could not be verified as implemented. However, considering the discrepancies noted with the sample of 9 expenditures, there is a high risk that travel funds could be misused for unauthorized travel activities or for travel expenses unrelated to chapter business. That's the end of the report for the first finding. Now I'm going to start on the second. Controls over chapter property need improvement to ensure property is reliable, adequately identified, and well documented. This was not resolved. Controls over property have been strengthened despite a corrective action plan. The last known annual inventory was completed in 2019 by temporary employees rather than the AMS as noted in the corrective action plan. Further, there was no review of the inventory by the CSC to ensure the physical inventory was done correctly and all property items were identified and accounted for. As a result, the property inventory was deemed incomplete as pertinent property information such as property numbers, acquisition dates, acquisition costs, and condition was missing. We selected 45 items to verify. They were affixed with property tags, and of this number, 4 items were missing identification tags. In addition, the identification number found on 11 property items were not recorded on the property inventory. The corrective action plan required the CSC and the Vice President to verify all property items were tagged and property inventory was complete, but based on our audit work, this was not done. Without sufficient controls, the risk remains that the chapter cannot fully account for its property and any items stolen or destroyed that could result in a financial loss to the chapter would not be readily detected. And that's the end of the second finding report. That's the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Janelle, for your report. I'd like to give the floor back to Mr. Honorable Daniel to follow up, and then I'd like to give the floor to my colleagues of the Budget and Finance Committee. Herman.
Thank you very much, Kwadota Pro Temp Chair, Kwadota Delegate Yella here, Kwadota I see. Kwadota Adonana Kwadota. Appreciate the report from Auditor General's Office, Kwadota, the staff that did the audit down at the Ojeto chapter. Adonana Kwadota. We know that we're going through this pandemic. We're still in this pandemic. It's been over a year and several months now. So this happened during the pandemic. Throughout the pandemic, our chapter staff and our chapter officials were out there at the local level helping our Navajo people that were really in need of food and other necessities regarding COVID-19. So I know that Ojeto was hit hard with COVID-19 at one time, 2 or 3 times. Yeah. So even Mexico, some people they quarantined themselves. I don't know the chapter administration they quarantined themselves. About the end they were helping people. Budget and Finance Committee. So right now I'm talking on behalf of the chapter. When I was doing my presentation on this legislation, so I'm presenting this legislation on behalf of our Auditor General. So legislation So I don't know when the auditors, when they made the follow-up, it happened in March 2020 and also in May. So my agency number dos kitoles kodo. It is young for the papa had pitoles. I don't know kodo kada kodo not Budget and Finance Committee, the Pro Tem Chair, and that will conclude our presentation to Budget and Finance Committee on legislation. Thank you very much.
Vice Chair or Pro Tem Haja. Delegate Yellow Hair, Pro Tem, are you still Pro Tem? Or is it Vice Chair Smith? Heidi Gila.
I'm muted, I'm sorry. Yeah, Honorable Daniel, thank you for your report, for your chapters, and I'd like to give the floor to a Budget Finance Committee if there's any questions, Vice Chairman. And I think to being a committee, yeah, you have the floor.
Okay, lad, Pro Temp Chair, though, the Budget and Finance Committee members, yeah, they've been, those citizens behind here, and those should hold it, Sana, we die in task, so Ziggy, don't he ages, although hold it behind see, quite, but sad, Trana's really have bananish. Ado dai clara da zodia ko dagdish titida. Of course, United Kiddish and Andada Nafsinigi, Legislative Chief Counsel, Legislative Council, Decoda, Section 3B, Sogi, RDC Ki Stokita, Mimela. Acceptance of Audit General Report and imposition of sanctions without Sad. Kai Soki Lachadoli, Amendment Dayit Lala, Kadegi chapter allowed this to finding a sad Anidi yet be Soto later called deeded Section 3 Nazkaz called Ashwood Adida, Johnny Budget Finance Committee member Daniki final authority called late out Taylor Dida, Penny Nanigi Nightish Kidigit other his Ani Bekek Elia Dida, Asianide Kitche, the Hela.
Yeah, Vice Chairman, Honorable Smith, thank you very much for your questions. And then, is there another one being the committee session? No, being the committee members?
Pro Tem, this is Delegate Crotty.
Go ahead, you have the floor, Shamaya. Thank you. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you. I did mention that the committee has taken a position that these are really administrative issues. I'm going to ask Madam Auditor General, where are we at in terms of those amendments to the policies? We're talking about sanction here, and it was brought before the committee that sanction really doesn't work. It creates more work for the financial folks who have to take away the 10% and hold it, and there was no real correlation on how that then either force the chapters to correct their administrative financial process. And I'm not sure if Ojito, and I apologize if they're a certified chapter. I think then my only question is if travel reimbursement was provided to like non-elected officials and non-chapter employees, are we creating a liability for the Navajo Nation? I understand the COVID relief, but we just had a meeting this morning on chapter funds that were lost. And the Navajo Nation, we have to pay a lot of money for our insurance. And so I just need to know, is there going to be additional training for the staff to remedy that? What's the solution in looking at the cap to make sure that all chapters are notified in terms of how the travel funding is available and the possible liability they put on the nation. If you read those travel authorization, we're covering individuals and we're being liable to, like if the chapter's asking them to transport services, we're taking on that liability. And I'm not sure how that was thought out. And so those are my only two questions. Thank you, Pro Tem.
Yeah, Maya, thank you for your questions. Plus Nados, being the committee members. Before I give the floor back to Honorable Herman Daniel. Yeah. I would like to give the floor back. Okay, go ahead, so you have the floor, Honorable Begay.
Yeah, Pro Temp Chair, Yellow Hair. Although members of the BNF committee, though, although Mr. Daniels, Delegate Daniels, although legislation, though, I know that is there any the help from the ASC office that when those things I know that financially I believe the ASC office is supposed to monitor that on the holidays down call. I'm not sure I think we need to really know, because as being a budget and finance committee, that the programs supposed to be carrying out their duties and their responsibility. So some of these programs were created and positions were created, and they were being put in place, these positions to alleviate some of these any financial impact, and to get that to prevent from happening. Even here these were put in place. Today is still continuing. Or the ASC office, or do they have the knowledge and the expertise to correct if they see any misuse, or if there's any correction that needs to be made prior before it go into sanction. I see those this program supposed to be helping out like that. What's the problem with that too? dot up to Ben in the to monitor Belinda. Though is down these ASC office, there's nobody that's there to monitor them or to oversee them if they're capable of fixing a chapter's financial processes. Dat zit dan los. Wij hadden nog gelid uit dat je net in het gewoon. Ieder jaar gaat op een discussie zit daar Mr. Daniel. Okay.
Pro Tem, this is Delegate Cruddy. Can I need to clarify my statement.
Abiga, Shemayaza, not kiddo. I want you to have a follow-up on that one. Shemayaza, thank you for your request. Go ahead, have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to clarify the statement because what the report, what the committee received was when we sanction chapter officials, that's not effective because it's the chapter staff and administration that implement these issues. So I just want to clarify that. That's why we were looking for the administrative fix to what it really is the chapter staff to fix these issues, and we're sanctioning chapter officials that that do not or are not part of processing this paperwork. Thank you. I just wanted to make that clarification.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to give the floor back to Honorable Daniel.
This is
Herman Daniel.
This is Trahini. I have a question before you go back to.
Okay. For that, I'd like to give you the floor immediately. Chairman, go ahead.
And thank you, for helping me out when I was in an area where I had no signal for taking over as pro temp chair. Budget and Finance Committee. when we had Baca chapter before us at there was an amendment sponsored by Vice Chair Smith, and the committee accepted that amendment, which was to overstrike chapter officials in the body of the legislation, therefore just holding the chapter manager and administration accountable for the sanction. So I don't know if we still remember that, but maybe we could think about that type of amendment again. That way we could just be the administration that would be held accountable to make get these findings corrected. This is the suggestions from the Budget and Finance Committee. Kayla, Pro-Tem Chair.
Hello, yeah, again, share last chairman behind Ziggy. Aroti Kade Kwajopa the dish Atlas Ginat honor. Honorable Herman Daniel Vaquero, Gavin Hitchahundish Lihan, Chairman of Vice Chairman, Genadi Kidat Danita Hot Erolik. Thank you, Herman. Take over the floor.
Thank you for that. Chair for the Budget and Finance Committee for the members of Seniki Kodoshanat. There's 3 questions. I don't know Chairman Henny, Baka Proof, Baka Chapter da Ilagi, Yada Ilagi, but Kodona with Vice Chair Smith, Kodo, Aruda Kodo, the Shama Delegate Crowdy, I believe those questions again are being posed to Office of Legislative Counsel. I don't know Kodosha Kodota Delegate Gay Kodota now is ASC helping the chapters. Moya Zi Kokodo, Asian Kokoda, Shasna Ash Kododa, Pro Temp Chair Kodona Gaydam, Shabahudish Ash Kodona Gaydam, the Hashi Hor Zishiki, Magay Calvin Sosi in the Ajiki because he's working with the chapter, chapter, and also he is the acting CSC at the chapter. So but at this time I'm gonna give some time back to my agents to maybe them. I don't know if they have any comments or Pro-Tem Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to go ahead and do it for your request. The agent, you have the floor.
Good morning again, Pro Temp Chair, members of the Budget and Finance Committee. This is Helen Brown, again with the Auditor General's Office. I'm going to do my best to answer the questions that were posed by the committee members, but please correct me if I misinterpreted some of the questions. The question by Delegate Smith about the RDC recommended language in the legislation. I do have some concerns with the proposed recommendation that was made by RDC. Basically, what I had explained to RDC legislative advisor at the time that we were presenting this legislation is that there's really three options that the committee can consider. One is that they can approve our recommendation for sanctions against Oljeto chapter based on our audit results. And if they approve that recommendation, then what will happen is the sanctions will go into effect, and then the chapter will then have that determination of how long it will take for them to address the remaining corrective measures. And then they'll come back and request for our office to come back and do a revisit. And that can be anywhere from a few months or even a couple years based on our experience. But that really is going to be dependent on the chapter. And then when we go back and do the revisit, and if they implemented the cap, then the sanctions are removed. So that's the option one. The second option that the committee has is they can disapprove our recommendation for sanction against Oljeto chapter, which is what RDC indicated. And I respect that decision. And so, but from our office standpoint, basically what happens at that point is the audit is completed. That basically means that the chapter is going to assume the risk for the audit issues that were not fully addressed. They're going to assume the risk for the corrective measures that were not fully implemented. And when I say the audit is completed, then we no longer have an obligation to go back and do further revisits. The next time we would go back to Oljeto chapter is when there's another audit request that will be made for the chapter. So that's if you're going to disapprove our recommendation for sanction. The third option is to approve our recommendation for sanction, but with some alternative. And this is what BNF has been doing in the past. They would approve our recommendation for sanction, but they will delay the sanction from being imposed until they give the chapter additional time. Usually that's 6 months, maybe even longer than that. And they will direct our office to go back and do a revisit. When we go back and do a revisit and we find that the sanctions were, the cap was not fully implemented, we will report that, and then at that time is when the sanctions will take effect. So those are the three options that I presented to RDC via the legislative advisor. So based on that, the committee, one, they disapproved our recommendation for sanction, but they also wanted us to go back to do a revisit at some point in time. So that's where the confusion is from our office, is what RDC is really asking for. So I just wanted to share those comments and those concerns with the Budget and Finance Committee. And again, the same options are available for the Budget and Finance Committee. I did hear our sponsor, Delegate Daniels, say that he felt like he was put in a precarious position, one, because he's the sponsor for our legislation that's recommending sanctions against his chapter, but he also feels that he's compelled to speak on behalf of his chapter. The reason why I asked for Delegate Daniels to assist our office is because I thought he would be the best person to determine what would be in the best interest of his chapter. And that's where, if he feels like there's additional time that's needed for the chapter, then that's what he can recommend on behalf of his chapter to the Budget and Finance Committee. And then based on that, the committee can direct us to go back. But there still has to be the consequences if the cap is not implemented, and that's where the sanctions come into play. But I didn't, with all due respect, that was not our intent to put him in that position, but we simply asked for his assistance because we thought he would be the best person to decide what would be in the best interest of his chapter. And I believe that's what he's doing today, is advocating for his chapter, and we completely understand that and we respect that. Delegate Crotty's question about the status of the sanctions. Our office continues to evaluate what other alternatives may be available to sanctions. We did start revisiting our plan of operation. We're going to resume that going into 2022. And one of the things that we are seriously contemplating is removing that authority to sanction against chapters and programs, because we are acknowledging that the support for sanctions has been declining. Nobody wants to sanction, and it does create challenges when it comes to implementing those sanctions or imposing those sanctions. And so we're evaluating all of those. And so hopefully within the first quarter of FY 2022, we will have some of those proposed amendments to our plan of operation. And so this is going to be more of a collective effort. It's not just from our office. We'll be reaching out to this committee as well as RDC and possibly ASC and DCD to see how we can go forward working with chapters addressing audit issues without the threat of sanctions. So that is something that we continue to work on, and hopefully we can have something to share with the committee in the near future. As far as the travel liabilities and whether staff training is needed, we always advocate for staff training. We rely on ASC to provide that for the chapters. There's it's a revolving door at the chapter level when it comes to staff. Some chapters continue to have high turnovers, so training is important. We rely on ASC to provide that training, to provide that information. So I believe it would help in this regard for Aljeto chapter, excuse me, when they should hire a new CSC. And then, of course, there's new officials that have come on board. I think they would also benefit from training. So we rely on ASC to address those types of issues at the chapter. With regards to the travel liabilities, I believe the policies state that travel is for officials and employees, and so it becomes a liability when other folks that are not officials are employees that are allowed to travel on behalf of the Navajo Nation. When we look at audit, we're looking at compliance with regards to travel policies and procedures, and we're also looking at controls to ensure the chapters are complying with travel policies. So anytime travel is done for people that are not prohibited by policies, it does increase that liability issue. So anytime that becomes an issue, we will report that as part of our audit. As far as sanctioning officials, that is, we do acknowledge the comment that was made by Delegate Crotty, and it's something that we've always been, we've heard in the past. How is it that delegates are being sanctioned when they're not allowed to be involved in the direct administration? And what I have said is that we've looked at Title 26. There's various different areas of the law that says there needs to be oversight, there needs to be monitoring, and some of that responsibility falls with the elected officials. And so that doesn't mean that they should be involved in the direct administration. And so we are mindful of that as we do audits, but it does, we understand where the issue is, and hopefully we can address that going forward as we revisit this whole sanction authority, and who should be the best people. If sanction is still going to be something that we're going to be doing going forward, then who should be sanctioned there? I think the problem, the concern that we've heard is that if we sanction staff, then the employees are just going to leave the chapter. And that puts the chapter in more of a precarious position when you don't have administrative support to run your daily operations and to meet the needs of your constituents out there when it comes to direct services. So it's almost like a balancing act that we have to consider. And I think that's the reason why elected officials were the ones that at the end that would be sanctioned. But we do understand the concerns that have been raised by that. And as far as the ASC to help the chapters, question by Delegate Begay, anything with regards to ASC, I will defer that to Mr. Sosi, Calvin Sosi, since he's working directly with Ojibwe chapter, and he can explain the working relationship. The last question by Delegate Henio, the comment regarding BACA, the corrective action plan. I do have a formal memo that I'll be issuing to the Budget and Finance Committee regarding that particular issue with the corrective action plans for chapters. I understand the committee had a concern about how the corrective action plans include chapter officials and ASC, and the committee thought that that would be violating the provision of Title 26 that says officials should not be involved in the direct administration. But on the other hand, as I stated, there are other provisions in Title 26 that states that there needs to be monitoring and oversight. There's even a provision in there about technical assistance that should be provided by the Central Navajo Nation government, and that would be Division of Community Development and ASC when it comes to chapters. And so we're looking at that more from a collective standpoint of what Title 26 stands. And so from our position with the Auditor General's Office, we feel it's important that the chapter officials and ASC continue to be part of the corrective action plans with regards to providing monitoring, providing oversight, and providing technical assistance. But I will be issuing that formal memo to Budget and Finance Committee to explain my reasons for that and why it's important that they should continue to be part of the corrective action plan, and that our office will continue to be accepting it. There is a stipulation in Title 12 under the Auditor General's Plan of Operation that requires, and that it's a responsibility upon our office to ensure that the corrective action plans are effective. And so when we evaluate these caps that are coming from the chapters, we need to ask ourselves if they are effective. And so that's where, in order for us to say they are effective, we feel it's important that the cap include not only the administration, but the officials and ASC. And I also want to point out that a lot of these chapter caps, they're required to have a chapter resolution supporting the cap. And so when the administration and the officials present the caps to their community and their constituents, it's a commitment that they're presenting to their constituents that together as staff and officials, they are going to be addressing the audit issues through the corrective action plan. So that's the reason why we feel it's important that officials and ASC continue to be part of the corrective action plan. So again, I will be issuing that memo to the Budget and Finance Committee, and just to explain all of that and our reasons, and hopefully the committee will take that into considerations as we come forward before the committee with future resolutions or legislations regarding chapter corrective action plans. So I think hopefully I addressed all of the comments and the questions that were posed by the committee to this point. If you have any additional questions, please let me know. I'll go ahead and pause there, Pro Temp Chair. Thank you.
Hello, Yat Ehnan Shehat, Ms. Brown, for your very clear explanations to Budget and Finance Committee. There was respectfully request was made by Honorable Herman Daniel to speak on behalf of the chapter. I'd like to give a floor to Calvin Sosi, and after that, I'd like to turn the gavel back to Chairman or Vice Chairman if they don't have any questions. And just be ready, both of you. Now, I'd like to give a floor to Calvin Sosi. First of all, give a floor back to Mr. Herman Daniel. Agent. Yeah, Herman.
Yes, Kudota. Thank you very much again, Kudota, Pro Temp Chair, Kudo. Yeah, Adonana Kudo, to my agents, Kudo, as well, Kudo, the Office of Auditor General, Kudo, I think, yeah, Kudo, for answering some of these questions, Kudo, posed by my colleagues, Kudo, Budget and Finance Committee, Kudo, Judana Kanigi. Kudo, at this time, Kudo, Pro Temp Chair, I'd like to give some time to Kudo, Ojeto, Kudo, Ajika and Ajiko, Kudo, acting CSC, Kudo, AMS, Mr. Calvin Sosi, Shabahodisha, Ashkudo, Pro Temp Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, Honorable Herman Daniel, take over, Mr. Calvin Sosi. You have the floor.
Yate Bennett, Chairperson and members of the Budget and Finance Committee. I'd like to thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to respond to some of the questions that you all have and how Kienta ASC has worked with the local chapter, more specifically, Oljeto chapter. Ako, as you all know that we went through an election year right about this time. And then we also had a challenge with the pandemic, COVID-19. While all this was happening. So back in October, back in June, July, August, and September, my staff and we went out and met with the former officials and the new officials, the new chapter officials. And we reviewed the FAF forms and travel authorization forms and the any fixed assets issues and travel authorization. We reviewed all the required forms being utilized by the chapter. And we reviewed with them some of the issues that were noted and cited. And we also recommended to the chapter to utilize one set of standardized FAF forms and travel documents so that there's consistency in the forms that are being utilized. We also reviewed with the chapter with both set of officials, the former officials and the new officials, the travel policy, and we reviewed that with the new officials as well, and what documents needed to be turned in as supporting documents anytime that travel is conducted. And then we went as far as putting together a segregation of responsibilities between, at the time, the CSC and then the AMS, that they can't be processing their own TAs. And if the CSC is going to be on travel, we let the AMS process the TA for the individual, and so on and so forth. So, and we've received considerable amount of questions from the chapter officials on other issues like monitoring form and how each official had to sign off on the forms. And we also referred the chapter officials back to Title 26 and reminded them of their duties and responsibilities and what's stated in the fiscal year 2021 budget instruction manual. Just additional, to what extent that ASC provide technical assistance. We just don't only concentrate just on Oljeto. We have 6 other chapters that we constantly put them on a monitoring schedule and visit them on a monthly basis to review what's noted in the budget instruction manual and what we should be looking for. And then also in the plan of operation for ASC. So the other issue I want to bring up too is Oljeto's corrective action plan and the status of it. We provided an update to the Resources and Development Committee of the Navajo Nation Council. And then we had, the chapter generally had 2 findings, and it was related to travel authorization and property inventory missing identification tags. And my office provided 2 PowerPoint presentations on travel authorization and fixed assets, more specifically tagging and identification. And that's what we've been working with the staff of Oljeto, and then also the officials, and more specifically the vice president, what their roles are. And right now they understand that on a quarterly basis, they have to verify all the fixed assets listing, what's on the UES listing that's submitted to risk management. So, so some of the items that we went over in terms of travel authorization back in July 22, 2019, we reviewed the travel authorization forms and noticed that some of the forms were lacking signatures. So we really impress upon the staff and the officials that those need to be received prior to approving any forms, and any lacking signatures or copies of travelers insurance cards need to be attached, and things like those. We did verify and indicated that that's what needs to accompany any TA to make it complete, and any other supporting documents. So and then we also went back and said that, you know, who should they appoint as a direct local supervisor to the chapter? Maybe that needs to be reviewed and also be considered too. So, and then on July 30th, we provided a presentation on fixed assets. And the presentation itself, some of the topics that we discussed were maintaining and updating inventory listing, ensuring that the chapter administration review the inventory listing at least once per quarter, and or at least once a year. So ADG, we went over that with the chapter administration and officials. And then the information needs to also be added on to the UES form as well for the chapter of what gets submitted to risk management. They all have to complement one another, and everything has to be accounted for. So since then, what we've done, these 2 issues that are before us, we did inventory for the chapter, we did tagging, we notified Navajo Nation, our property management. They came out and provided us property tags. Since they're a non-certified chapter, we went and tagged all of the equipment. We're now verifying everything. And right now, as far as inventory, I feel like we're good there. And we have the vice president, as a matter of fact, next month or this month to go out and do a quarterly review of everything and make sure that they're accounted for. Although, as of today, there's very limited travel. Nobody's on travel. But just the AMS every now and then would purchase supplies from nearby towns so that just for the essential items and part of for herself to carry out her administrative duties. None of my staff travel on behalf of the chapter. We totally rely on the AMS to do that for us. So 80 day the reason why some of these findings were noted too, more likely is because there was a moratorium placed on ASC during the public health order, the executive order issued earlier, and we had to limit our travel. And for that reason, it was kind of hard for us to go and monitor some of the chapters because Oljeto at one time was considered a hotspot. There was constantly cases being reported as part of the process. COVID was and kicked in extremely high. We even lost one of our chapter official, the chapter vice president, to COVID. So that's how serious it was. So, we had to, at some point in time, fend for ourselves to say that, is it safe to travel or not? But considering that this, to comply with the public health order and the executive orders on travel, we stayed within the office and we had staff bring in their reports to us during this time. And majority of the Navajo Nation departments were restricted from traveling. So, but at this point in time, I really strongly feel like as SPPS that we've complied with all the mandates that's required for each chapter. We're working with each of our chapters to come into compliance, especially with corrective action plans. During the pandemic, we still managed to work with Oljeto and Shantu chapter on that. So, so that now that the CSC is vacant and we're doing everything that we can to provide the necessary
Pro Tem Chair.
We can't hear it right now. I'd like to give a floor back to Mr. Daniel. I'd like to give a floor and maybe give it back to Chairman or Vice Chairman if we don't have any questions. Time consuming is right here under us. Chairman or Vice Chairman, if you don't have any questions. And
Pro Tem Chair, this is Vice Chair Smith. I'd like to.
Okay.
This is Chair Henio, Pro Tem Chair.
Okay. All right.
Pro Tem Chair, are you handing the gavel back?
I would like to return the gavel back to Chairman. My brother, take over and go ahead. Chairman.
You over here, Pro Tem Chair. Are you Pro Tem Chair? Hashkila, you with the side and I see so. Let's move forward with our agenda and this legislation. With that explanation from Mr. Calvin Sosi, go back to Budget and Finance Committee. Any further questions or comments?
Chair Henio, this is Vice Chair.
Vice Chair Smith, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Henio and committee members of the Budget and Finance. I do have a question for Legislative Council.
on this legislation. As you see, Section 3 has been stricken out, and the intent of this legislation was to accept the acceptance of Auditor General's report and imposition of sanctions. Now, the language has been changed, and it's been voted on, it's been passed, and it's now in the Section 3 says, chapter allowed additional time to complete the findings. What I see is this legislation that was first drafted was to accept the Auditor General's report and to sanction. I'm not in favor of sanction everybody, but I'm talking about the legislation itself. My question is, with this language change, does that change the intent of legislation 0161? That's my question to Chief Legislative Counsel. Maybe DOJ can chime in on this on behalf of what's happening here. The way I read this is Section 3, there was A, B, C, D, and E, which outlined what the sanction would do, and that's been all stricken. So if that's all stricken, does that mean they should have dropped another legislation to give ample time and keep this one at bay till the 6 months have additional time has been done? I understand too that under Section 3, the new language is in page 3, line of 8, they added G, H, J, and K, which basically is what was given a report on. The chapter officials were not the reigning officials at the time. In all fairness, they shouldn't be sanctioned. The other one is there's only AMS at the chapter. There's no CSC. The other one is fairness of the report and the actions described, and to accomplish this issues. And then K is the one that's basically saying that Division of Community Development should assist the chapter on behalf of this. So this was replaced on behalf of A, B, C, D, and E, which was the initial legislation. So that's my question. Does that change the whole legislation on this 0161 based on the audit findings and what is being reported here? Is if you look at the title, it says an action related to Resource Development and Budget Finance Committee accepting the Auditor General's follow-up review and OJTO's corrective action plan implementation and imposing sanctions upon OJTO chapter for failure to implement the corrective action. So that was the initial legislation, Chair Henu. I'd have an insight on DOJ and also Legislative Chief Counsel on this. Thank you. Vice Chair Smith. Any further questions, comments, Budget and Finance Committee members? If not, do we have a Office of Legislative Counsel on the line? Delegate Elmer P. Begay. Hold on, let me see if the Office of Legislative Counsel is on the line.
Mr. Chair, this is Laureline with Office of Legislative Counsel. I'm on the line.
Okay, thank you. And just I'll defer to you after I give the floor to Delegate Elmer P. Begay. Delegate Begay.
Okay, non-sensitive Chair Henio, our Budget and Finance Committee. Our Sudadot Delegate Daniels. Our ASC officer respond but I still have a question. I think the whole intent of the question was the prevention part of it. I know it's indeed that I know that you've been overseeing the chapters. It don't matter, I guess. We're always supposed to be prepared. Even the audits of emails and maybe we need audit some maybe the electrical part of it. But today seems like when you look at the report, there was a chance for to before we get to sanction, that there was a chance to correct these. It seems like we're ASC office is just beginning to ignore that there's potential that there's a financial problems with forms and maybe the traveling part of it and the signatures and things like that. I thought how many emails were sent to them regarding the first initial when we saw that problem was quite the initial state of it, what was being done to prevent from happening. And what I about this case here, we say that because of the pandemic, we're supposed to already have plans too. That's what we're looking at. That's what I'm looking at. What kind of plans do you have for with doing business, maybe telephonically, and then also through maybe Zoom and I think the chapter needs those kind of network with those using the technology, try to get to them. So even get it done so constant. So hey, that's what I wanted to hear from you. How many times it was these technology was used like Zoom to correct that. I still have a problem with it. Chair Henio, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, I'm receiving gay. With that, Mr. Pai, response to Vice Chair Smith's question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, good. So to answer Vice Chair Smith's question, the amendments enacted by Resources and Development Committee, they definitely change the intent of the legislation. The deletions by RDC completely remove the sanctions provided for under 12 NNC, Section 9B, and in coordination with 12 NNC 810. The Budget and Finance Committee does have final authority under Title 12 to enact these sanctions, which include the 10% withholding of all funds payable to the chapter and the 20% withholding of the stipend payments for the chapter officials. The fact that these are deleted and in place of the deleted language, the RDC has put additional time, additional 6 months for the chapter to address the audit findings. And so if the Budget and Finance Committee agrees with the amendments passed by RDC, of course, the legislation with those amendments can be adopted, can be passed by Budget and Finance Committee today. And Budget and Finance Committee, as I said, is the final authority regarding these sanctions. If Budget and Finance Committee wants to go back to the original intent of the legislation, then Budget and Finance Committee would reject the amendments by RDC. So it's up to the committee what the committee wishes to do. As far as Delegate Begay's questions on technology, I couldn't answer that question. It would have to be to the chapters and possibly to the Auditor General. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tapahi, for your response to the committee. Although for Delegate Elvin P. Begay, send us Delegate Herman Daniels, Jr.
Mr. Chair, my brother, Chairman Henny, and the Vice Chair Smith, and the committee members of Seniki, my agents, Office of Auditor General, Office of Legislative Counsel, Ms. Tapaha.
Shiash, Mr. Daniels, are you still speaking? Trujillo may have dropped his call.
Mr. Chair, I'm back on.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay, my call dropped, I apologize, even though it's not my fault. But you heard from Office of Auditor General and also from the ASC, acting ASC at the local chapter, which is Ojeto chapter. We heard from Office of Legislative Counsel on the amendment that was made by RDC just a couple of weeks ago when I brought this legislation before them. They made that amendment. Working together with Auditor General's office, with ASC, DCD, they're under ASC, they're under DCD. So ASC working together with them, together. I see it was niche. So with the amendment that was made by RDC, additional 6 months to correct these findings. I guess what I'm trying to say is a resolution, a solution to how to fix these findings. I don't know. So I don't know. We have the new officials that are on board at Ojeto chapter. We have new officials. So they inherit this so I see the amendment that was made by RDC gave them on behalf of the chapter. I don't have a problem with sponsoring this legislation, but what I really want is a solution, a resolution on how to fix these findings kudo dam idiot aba hasito les kudo arunana kudo kudo this all happened during this pandemic. Arunana Ojeto has been hit hard by COVID-19. At one time, it was Ojeto was a hot spot. Kudo I see kudo there. So we couldn't do anything. Kudo and Ojeto, our staff, the kudo I see kudo they can't do anything when they was hit hard by COVID-19. But out and the kudo I see kudo we pulled through. I don't know other question kudo what has been mentioned by ASC kudo Mr. Sosi kudo one of the chapter official kudo which is able to stand that kudo the late Albert Holiday kudo aid his handi kudo aid COVID-19 that kudo which not it's not kudo so even nashiko kudo kudo bana oshkato that kudo Mr. Chair Mr. Bahanana thank you very much.
Shikela Sunda Delegate Herman Daniels Jr. to the Sunda Budget and Finance Committee. Any further questions, comments on legislation 161-21 or 20?
Chair Haney, this is Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith, Sunda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Nada. My question is to Legislative Council, since this is changed the intent of the legislation, then I think the heading should be changed too. I think there should be an amendment to that. Because if you read the heading and then you go into the body, the heading's telling us that there's going to be a corrective action and it's going to be imposing sanctions on the OJTO chapter. And if you go down to section 3, it says chapter allowed additional time to complete the findings. I think that should be in the heading, since this legislation has changed from sanctioning to put that language in here. I want to make that motion to do that so that it's corresponding with section 3. Shananda, o legislation kombakagi sad pombashagi ehad o jeto chapter a sanction ilya abajan ko di ndok asto tahado di kosad section 3 a bito. So chapter allowed additional time to complete the findings. I'll agree on this legislation. Shananda ko she need did a hot edo but let's give them some time. So I want to have Legislative Council to do an amendment on that. Thank you.
Vice Chair Smith, before I recognize your motion. Legislative Council, Mr. Pai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. The entire staff of Office of Legislative Counsel, we're not in our office. We're having an internal meeting off-site, so I don't have access to my email. But the change to the title of the legislation can be made as a technical amendment. If BFC today approves the version of the legislation that was passed and adopted by RDC with all of those amendments, then it's just a matter of a technical correction to the title of the legislation to reflect those amendments. So that can be done as a technical amendment. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pai. Also, for your information from the Budget and Finance Committee, I'm here at Steno, and there is absolutely no email at all. It's not working here. And I've been trying to set out something. I haven't received anything. So just for FYI, in case we're asked for any amendments to be sent to us, I don't think we'd be able to do that. But back to Vice Chair Smith, we've heard from Legislative Council where it could be a technical amendment. So it might not require a motion. Vice Chair Smith.
Thank you, Chair Henio, and also thank you, Legislative Council, on behalf of the advice on this legislation 0161-21. It is imperative that we have it aligned with what the amendment is doing, so that the heading will reflect what Budget and Finance's final authority has endorsed and has made as their final action call. I think that after 6 months, then, Chair, if I'm correct, if they haven't imposed any of their corrective action, then that would constitute a legislation to impose sanctions upon them. Is that correct, Chair Henio, or maybe the Legislative Council can enlighten us on that? Thank you.
Vice Chair Smith, yeah, thank you for are you withdrawing your motion though, to begin with?
At this point in time, yes, since we're having.
Okay. With that, Vice Chair Smith, what the committee could do here is, if you wish to stay in line with what the amendment from RDC, since we do have a motion and second from the committee here, and within that, we could do is a motion to table the legislation for 6 months. And then within that time, bring it back to the floor, and then have the Auditor General give the committee a report again as far as what has happened, and also hear from the chapter itself. And then we could go from there whether to still impose sanctions from the committee or not. Vice Chair Smith.
Thank you, Chair Henio. That is a good suggestion. Given ample time, 6 months, we'll table it for a motion to table it, starting the new fiscal year, October, until 6 months is completed. Chair Henio, thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Lorraine, if I may.
Hold on, Mr. Pahi. So there is a motion on the floor to table the legislation for 6 months, beginning October 1st. And from there, it'd be 6 months from there into March or April 1st, with one of those two, to be brought back before the committee. Is there a second?
Yellow hair, second.
Second by Delegate Jimmy Yellow Hair. So we do have a motion and second on the floor. Mr. Pahi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to say, before the committee votes to table this, I would recommend that the committee, if the committee intends to give the chapter more time, if the committee supports and agrees with all of the amendments made by RDC, the committee should pass this legislation with those amendments. The reason being is because the amendments have directives, affirmatively directing DCD to work with the chapter, and directing the chapter and DCD to report to the Resources Committee and Budget and Finance on the chapter's completion and correction of the issues in the audit report. This report is to occur no later than 3 months after this resolution is certified. So, and it also goes on to say that the special review by the Auditor General will be revisited within 6 months. So I think it's important for the committee to put into effect these directives, and also to affirmatively state that this special review by the Auditor General will be revisited, so that gives clear direction to the Auditor General that she's going to revisit all of the findings in the audit report and prepare a revised audit report by the 6 month deadline. So that would be my recommendation, but of course the committee is free to do whatever it chooses. Thank you.
Mr. Pai, for your recommendations. Back to the Budget and Finance Committee. There is a motion to table and a second. and tabling motions have no debate. So I just wanted to get clarification from Legislative Council. So with that, Ramona, if you would lead us in the roll call vote.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, this is Helen Brown from the Auditor General's office. May I make a comment?
There's no debate on tabling motions. Ramona, if you would, lead us in the roll call vote.
Yes, Chairman.
Question of privilege, Delegate Crotty.
On question of privilege while we're voting, Shandafi, I'll get Amber Kineswakari.
Yes, thank you, Chair. While we're voting, Chair, I haven't, because of our technical challenges, I do not know the amendment that RDC passed. So I'm just concerned, and that's why I'm moving that I think we should table until we at least, I'm just not sure if it's the 6 months to meet the requirement, or is it 6 months because of the technical challenges we're facing on the committee regarding this legislation? And I need that clarification, Chair, before I vote. Thank you.
No, Shananda, thank you for that question of privilege. Back to Vice Chair Smith. On your tabling motion, is it to meet the requirements or because of the technical difficulties we're facing today?
Well, thank you, Chair Henio. It's a combination of two. Right now, we can't really get into the aspects of making amendments, and also the fact that this has changed the legislation, the intent of it. Therefore, we'll give them additional time for them to review, and we'll come back with the main legislation, and it'll still be having the amendments, and there's no changes on the amendments. But when it comes back to the Navajo Nation Budget and Finance Committee, I'm sure Honorable Daniels will have a report, and also AG will have a report. Auditor General will have a report. So that's why I'm motioning to table this for 6 months. And thank you.
Again, Vice Chair Smith, for your response. Back to Ramona, you would lead us in continue the roll call voting.
Chair Henio, this is Peggy. Can I speak real quick?
So, Ramona, we're voting. Ramona, if you would lead us in roll call vote.
Yes, roll call vote for the table in motion. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
Vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Amber Kenneth-Boccardi, how do you vote?
Shadow Delegate Amber Kenneth-Boccardi, and I'll vote red. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Amber Kenneth-Boccardi votes red. Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Yeah, Delegate Brown votes red. Yeah.
Thank you. Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes red. Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote? Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote? Chairman,
I'll vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 3 members voting in the affirmative, 2 opposing, Chairman not voting. Chairman?
Ramona, for leading in the roll call vote. We do have a vote of 3 in favor, 2 opposed. Tabling motion passes. So that motion legislation is tabled for 6 months. With that, Budget and Finance Committee, that takes care of the new business item. And we'll go back to reports at this time. Report item A, which is with Navajo Nation Division of Community Development. Ms. Pearl Yellowman, are you on the line? Dr. Pearl Yellowman. Chairman Rick Nave.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Oh, yes, it's Dr. Pearl Yellowman. Is that you?
I am on the line, Chair Henio. Unfortunately, I left my office
to attend a meeting with leadership, and I have Ms. Jim Martin, who could possibly present the information that we are going to share, Chair, or ask if we could be moved down to the third report, if that's possible, Chair.
Christina, Ms. Jim Martin, are you on the line? Ms. Jim Martin?
Good afternoon.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Is this Mr. Martin?
Oh, yeah, this is some lots of Jim Martin.
Okay, good. Thank you. As requested by Dr. Yellowman, that you are able to provide the report to the committee. Are you able to do that?
Honorable Chair, thank you for the time. We are asking if we could have a little bit more time and possibly move our report to the third item on the agenda while we are dealing with internet problems right now. And then that would also give Dr. Yellowman some time to get back to the office. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you for that response. Budget and Finance committee members, there are technical challenges here in Window Rock, as with the internet and the email system, and I believe we do have 3 reports that are before the committee. So it would be up to the committee, and there was a request to move item A down the line to item C or D after the controller's report. So with this, if there's no comments from the committee, I'll move forward to the next report. Delegate Elmer P. Begay.
I thought that, Chair, I thought that you need a motion to do that. But then, go ahead.
Okay, there's no motion. I was just asking the committee what their wishes were to do on the reports, if they wish to still continue with the reports or take separate action. The Office of Management and Budget. Mr. Biel. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. My call, in addition to all of the challenges, keeps dropping. I'd like to ask Chair, just in terms of some of the technical issues, if the committee, if we could move the 3 reports to our next agenda to allow staff. I'm not receiving any email. My texts are bouncing back, and I keep getting dropped from this call. So I would just like to make that recommendation, Chairman Henio, and hear from the committee. Thank you. That motion. Thank you.
A motion. I'll second that. So there's a motion, if I'm hearing it right, to defer all the reports to the October 5th, 2021 meeting. And if it is in line with, then they'll second by Delegate Nathaniel Brown. Delegate Amber Kaniswakari.
Yes.
Okay, with that, I'll recognize that motion to defer the reports to the next meeting. Second by Delegate Nathaniel Brown. With that, any questions, comments? Budget and Finance Committee? We'll leave this in a roll call vote. Ramona, to defer the reports to the next meeting on October 5th, 2021.
Yes, Chairman, roll call vote on deferring the reports to October 5th, 2021. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I vote green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Amber Kenneth Cardi, how do you vote?
Shade, this is Delegate Amber Canis Balcardi. I hope you could hear me, and I vote green. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Shadeja. I can hear you. Honorable Amber Kenneth Cardi votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green. Yeah.
Thank you. Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
I'll vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 5 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing, and Chairman not voting. Chairman?
Okay, now thank you for that roll call vote. Vote carries with 5 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. All the reports have been deferred to the next meeting. Therefore, that takes care of our agenda for today. And we are at the last item on the agenda, close of business, written announcements, motion to adjourn. Their motion to adjourn.
Delegate Brown. Motion to adjourn.
Kashin Shinada, Delegate Nathaniel Brown. Motion to adjourn, second by Shinada, Delegate Elmer P. Begay. We do have motion second. Any comments, questions?
Chair Heniel, this is Peggy.
Peggy, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I was hoping to send out a written announcement, but because of the email situation, I couldn't do it. But just to let you know, the off-reservation travel for this week, the 23rd and 24th, the meeting with CKP and RDC has been rescheduled. It's been rescheduled to October 7th and 8th. Isha, so there's no meeting down at Scottsdale this week. Just letting you know, FYI. And then also the 6 months is October to April. So that's 6 months.
Thank you, Peggy, for that information. So I guess we'll have to put that back on October 5th agenda again. With that,
Sure.
If there's no other comments.
Chairman, this
motion to adjourn.
Delegate Yellowhair.
Delegate Yellowhair, Shinada.
Oh, howla. Mitanitan anjos yellow.
2 p.m. Baka at Fire Rock.
2 p.m.
Need to let
Okay.
Manuel know though, because there's limited seating even enough.
Okay. I'm heading that way too.
Chair.
Tony, guys.
Chair, this is Delegate.
Christina, Shinada, Delegate Begay.
Announcements that you like. Can we do announcements?
There's this written announcements on our agenda.
Oh.
And
I was do announcement then.
Yes, condition that.
Announcement, Siga. Can I do announcement real quick?
I still know it's not that.
Yeah, the committee members over at White Cone, there's Hatasis, those Ghanis, the late Hasi Ghanis, the older sons, each of them had, there's about 5 ceremonies that they used to have by the late Hasi Ghani. So all the sons, they started using all the 5 ceremonies. They're going to have a protection prayer for the next COVID, Delta COVID variants. It's going to get it against them down now. So it's going to be scheduled the 25th. They're going to have a protection prayer. And then the next day, all 4 direction, na in the offering. Sige that the next hadin ni ko ijad at the later the 26th can be the offering. So on condition, and then that's what they're doing. Presented by Gilbert Ghani and Gibson Ghani and Del Ghani. Leslie Ghani. They can be all doing it at the same. So it is $100,000. I don't know that anything that's related to today's issues, it up on it into this done. No, so it is So that's what my announcement to each and everyone to be gone.
Elmer P. Begay being on that. With that, let's continue with the motion to adjourn. Ramona, if you would lead us in a roll call vote.
Sure, Chairman, roll call vote for motion to adjourn. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
How about green?
Thank you. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Amber Kenneth Cardi, how do you vote?
Shada, this is Delegate Amber Kenneth Cardi, and I vote green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Amber Kenneth Cardi votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green. Yes.
Thank you. Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
I'll vote green too.
Thank you. Honorable Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 5 members voting in the affirmative and 0 opposing. Chairman not voting. Chairman?
Shinkela Ramona for that roll call vote. 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Motion to adjourn carries. With that, it's 12:31 p.m. and we are hereby adjourned. Kaya lunch ng Budget and Finance Committee. All the staff and listeners for today, thank you, and have a good Tuesday and be safe. Kaya lang.